Each of us has a path of pure potential, the best and fullest life possible. We have the ability to tap into the vast web of life and the power to deepen our connection to the spirit world. We are creators of our lives and can shift our experiences at any moment to live our highest path. To be alive is magic, and through this knowledge, we can heal and transform anything we wish. Join me, Felicia Armstrong, as we learn how to apply the ancient practices of shamanism to our everyday contemporary life. Enjoy learning about different aspects of shamanism and living in tune with nature cycles, along with guided shamanic journeys and meditations. I am Felicia Armstrong, and this is Shamanic Living. Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome to Shamanic Living. I'm Felicia Armstrong, and I'm here monthly to bring my shamanic lifestyle to each of you. I've been working as a shamanic healer for well over a decade, and one of the tools that has been deeply healing in the way that I understand myself and the world around me is astrology. So I'm here today with astrologer Paula Quetermous, and we will be discussing the basics of astrology and what an amazing tool it can be. I met Paula when I was diving deeply into astrology. I was referred to her as someone who could mentor me, and she ended up living right down the street from where I was at the time, so it just was perfect. And from the moment we first talked, we instantly had a connection, which I later found out was partially because our Mercuries are conjunct, meaning that they're in the same sign. So we just innately understand how the other communicates and thinks, and we just get each other. And I think we've probably had many past lives together too. So I studied astrology with her for about a year, doing private classes, and we just had a blast. It helped me to understand myself and the people around me so deeply. I learned so much. So welcome, Paula. I am so excited to have you on today because astrology is so near and dear to my heart, and so are you. And I feel like astrology is just this amazing tool that we can use to learn so much about ourselves. And that's what most people are doing. They're on this journey and they're exploring who they are and their purpose. And I recently read that about a quarter of all Americans believe in astrology. So why do you feel like people are so interested in it?
Well, thank you for asking me on. I'm honored to
Yes,
be here and talk astrology.
thrilled.
There's nothing I'd rather talk about actually. I think that everyone's aware of the heavens around this planet. It's always been a spectacular thing to look at the sky, and people do want to know more about themselves now. Thousands of years astrology was used, as you've said. Um, for thousands of years it was used, and it kind of just ran off the road at some point where it wasn't acknowledged. But there were drawings on cave walls even before we may have thought astrology started. So I was just fascinated by finding out who I was in life. So I just gravitated towards, like, I went to 11 different schools because we moved all the time. So I would identify people by asking them what their sign was because I knew what mine was, and it was a way to it was a way to talk to people. So even when I was a child, second grade, third grade, I would say, I would start a conversation because I'd be in a new school again. And people, some didn't know anything about it and some did. And so I started really early, even earlier than that, being fascinated by it.
Oh, so that was my next question is I really wanted everyone to kind of get an idea of how you became an astrologer and what got you into it. And it sounds like it just was so natural. So where did you progress from a child who understood the people around her through that into becoming this astrologer that's worked with probably thousands of people?
Well, I think my origins are responsible for my attraction to astrology because I was adopted. And I didn't really, I wanted to know who I was. And I think I innately knew. And I remember being 3, being in my bed, looking out the back window in Kentucky at this little mountain behind our house, and I would see the moon rise. sometimes. Sometimes she would be there, sometimes she would not. And I would look for her. And I had to sneak because I wasn't supposed to get out of the bed. So I had to hang off the bed, hang onto the window, and watch. And I was fascinated. And I didn't know why she was there sometimes and why she wasn't. But she was that moon glow was a comfort to me as a little
Wow.
baby, starting below 3. So from there, fast forward till I was 26, I met a man on a blind date, and I was talking about astrology, and he said, "That's not real astrology. This is real astrology." And he gave me a calendar that had the aspects of the day written on each little day from the sun to the moon and Venus to Mars. And I was like fascinated because no one had introduced me to this as any kind of a science or a study.
Right.
But I just knew people's signs. I understood that difference. I could see it in certain people. I could see things that reminded me of their sign when they told me what it was. So I kind of learned a little bit as I went. At 26, I got this calendar and I sent away in the mail to someone in northern Michigan, I don't remember who, for a copy of my birth chart. But I didn't have the time.
Okay.
And I was told the time is super important. Without the time, you kind of don't have the exact imprint that you're looking for the whole
Right.
story.
Right.
So um, I got the chart and I looked at it, and I knew I was a Leo sun, but there were 5 planets in Leo, all in this one little place, a little group, a bunch of them. And then there was another little clump over here, and it was Gemini planets. And I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what this is, but it looks so familiar.
Oh,
I since have come to believe I've been an astrologer in a past life, maybe more than one, I don't know. But it right away took me, the symbols, everything. So I got books, and it turned out, funnily enough, I had the wrong rising sign in the chart they sent me because
oh,
they didn't take the time to like change the local time where I was born, which was Central Standard Time, which
right.
makes a difference in the wheel. So that was a good
Yes.
lesson for me that if you don't have the right wheel, it doesn't feel right because there were just things that didn't work out in my mind when I would read in a book about it and I'd look at my chart. It said I had a different rising sign than I actually did.
Okay.
I did not have a Scorpio rising, which I was told I had.
Right. And
And
I
I
can
looked it
tell
up
that.
and I thought, yeah, I think,
Yeah.
no, that's not me. I'm not secretive. You know me. I'm out there. I'll talk to anyone. So I got it fixed. I got a corrected chart, and then I just began to learn bit by bit. And I think I started to do readings within maybe 6 months of getting the right
Wow.
chart because
So
I
it
had
took
learned.
that easy for you. Just got it.
I just kind of, yeah, I dove into it,
Right.
which is what I do when I love something.
Yeah. And I think if you're meant to do it, that's how it works, right? You just have this natural affinity, you're drawn to it. So
Yes.
that's important. And I think people need to remember that about anything in life. Everyone's looking for their purpose. And it's usually that thing that you loved when you were a small child and you wanted to be it so badly. And then we kind of grow up usually and start losing that and thinking we have to be more practical. But whenever I see someone's life purpose and path, it's always that beautiful little thing they wanted to be as a child. So I love that story.
Thanks. I love it too. It changed my life because it gave me, information about myself because I had lived with a family that was not my birth family, and that went okay, but they weren't my um, original parents.
Right.
So there was kind of like this mystery to me about the world and life, and I wanted to know answers. And I think I've always been a really spiritual person. Kind of always been aware of other voices, other times, other places. It's just something that interested me. I've read a lot of history, and I really dug into the charts. And when I started to meet with people, and I would say, I see this, I would get a yes, or I would get, oh, that's surprising. How would you know that? So I kept it up because it worked, and it
Amazing.
still does, and it's blossomed. Astrology itself has blossomed since that time,
Right.
amazing.
It's definitely pretty
everywhere.
mainstream. Yeah, I've noticed
I
that.
think I think most people do think like an astrology reading is I don't know what they think, but they don't realize how complex we are as
Yes.
human beings and how astrology as a science has come such a long way in the last 10 years, 20 years that I know of. It's
Yeah, I
amazing.
definitely want to get more into it as a science because it's so fascinating when you look back in time and see that it was science for us.
Yeah.
So before we head there, I kind of wanted to talk about because there's so many ways to study it. I know for me, having those one-on-one classes with you were just incredible. That's what I needed at the time. I had gone through a lot of amazing books and it was super helpful, but just to have that person there and to be able to have you guide me and to bounce ideas off, that was what I needed. So, what would you recommend for someone wanting to learn about astrology?
Um, I think everybody has their own way, and I think we're led to it.
Yeah, agreed.
So, so it becomes obvious what you should do if you get that excited about a topic.
Right,
So, like I said, I started with a really simple book that said, if your Venus is here, this is your behavior. If your moon is there, this might be your connection to emotional things and to your mother. So
right.
each planet had like a simple starter place, and that's where I started. And then I did go to a teacher. Her name was Victoria. I went to her, and she helped me kind of get started by showing me an ephemeris, which is a record of each planet in daily time. You can find it all.
Yes.
It's a whole row of planets for any year of life, and that helped me to understand the movement of time through how these planets actually move. They move at different rates. You know, some spend a year in a sign, some spend 13 to 20 years in a sign. So I just gradually picked up details as I went. I started with a very simple chart, which I've got here today with me, and just plain planets. And I just learned so much about other people and about myself but I was fascinated. I was
I
I
think
was
that's
constantly using it.
it's really a cool point to hit on too, is the fact that back in the day, we didn't get these programs to generate charts. So people were hand doing charts. And I don't know when these incredible programs began, but did you start with a program or were you doing it by hand at that time?
I couldn't I went to 11 schools. Can you imagine my math upbringing? I didn't know what page we were on in any books in any time all through high
Right.
school. So, I had a friend's mother, one of my best friend's mother in high school was a psychic medium, and she knew astrology, and she knew how to find sidereal time and turn it into a chart, which is a time of day that's printed in the ephemeris. I had no idea how she did it. She tried to teach it to me, and then she said, "That's okay, Paula. I'll just do this for you. You just call me when you need a chart." And she would set up and tell me what the rising sign was that day. And I started to use that with the chart. She encouraged me and mentored me in the
Oh,
beginning.
that's
And I'll
amazing.
always be grateful to Sona, that was her name, she's gone now, for that help. Because she saw it, she saw me, and she knew what to do to help me. And it went that way from there on. Teachers appeared. Um,
Yes, they do, don't
yeah,
they? And that I feel
yeah,
the same way about you. And that's one thing I really love about you is that you see the importance of passing this along and that if we don't pass it along in that way, like the knowledge gets lost as it does with everything. So it's a really cool thing to just take all of that, everything you've gained and learned and pass it to the next generation and then they get to put their spin and their own intuition on it. And that's important to me too, is to talk a little bit about that. It is a science, but I do feel anytime I've worked with you, anytime you've read for me, you're definitely using a lot of intuition with it too. So do you feel that it's that way for most people that do astrology readings? Because they just kind of seem to go hand in hand. I can't imagine somebody maybe not doing it.
I think intuition is really important to navigate the world.
Yeah,
And
agreed.
I'm grateful for any of that I have, and I seem to have quite a bit. I would call myself an empath and an intuitive, but I didn't really realize that at first. I thought I was just reading, a
Right.
science.
I felt the same way when I started with tarot cards. I was not reading the tarot card, but it was a tool and it helped me to understand my intuition. And finally, I put the tarot cards down because I never actually had learned how to read them and I was just using my intuition the whole time. So I love that you've had that kind of experience too, and you can do both,
Yes, you
right?
can. Yes, and I do, and I do. And when I started to prepare for this podcast, I sat down and I looked at all the, stuff I had. I had a note from you, and I was thinking, okay, I'll print a chart and we'll talk. And
Yes.
a song came in my head. Songs come in my head, and it was Ezekiel Saw the Wheel. Did you ever hear
Oh,
that song?
cool. Who is the spy?
Ezekiel saw the wheel way up in the middle of the air. Okay, that's the song. And I guess it refers to Ezekiel as a person. It's an African American spiritual song written by someone
Wow.
named William Dawson, right?
Okay.
But it's been resung and it's referred to as a book in the Bible. Um, Bing Crosby sang it. A
Wow.
bunch of people sang it. John Lee Hooker, Paul Robeson, Woody Guthrie. It was sort of a
Wow.
spiritual song, and it popped into my head, and I laughed because, that's it. Ezekiel saw the
Saw
wheel.
the
I saw
wheel.
the moon. I saw the stars. I saw them
Yes.
end up on a circle on a piece of paper. And somehow all that got translated into using intuition and then trying to understand the way the chart works. Um, it's intricate yet simple
Right. And the
in a
symbol
way if you take a
is the
small bite.
wheel. Yes.
Yeah,
It's like everything that we are a part of is represented by a wheel in some way. It's cyclical. Our we are
absolutely.
cyclical, the seasons, everything. So I feel like that wheel is so powerful because just to look at it itself, it reminds me of a mandala and how
Yeah.
those are healing for people just by looking at them. They help to make sense out of chaos and create order. So that's just gives me chills everywhere to hear that.
Yes.
You heard that song. It's a beautiful kind of validation for let's talk today.
I thought it was really hilarious and enjoyed it and looked up who wrote the song and who sang it. So, yeah.
I get things through song all the time too, and I feel like that is a powerful way to get intuitive hits because it gets you right there. It's something you're not really thinking about, and it can bring you anywhere through song, and that's a powerful tool for people. We remember lyrics and melodies, and yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah,
So I
I
wanted
agree.
to talk a little bit about how I've really learned that astrology, even though it's kind of mainstream, it's more for people to talk about horoscopes. And most people don't really know what a birth chart is. And to me, the horoscope part is like just kind of the introduction. It's something I never got too into, but the birth chart is what just blew everything open to me. So, from your perspective, and it's kind of a big question, but what is a birth chart?
A birth chart is a circle on a piece of paper for me now. For a while, I actually wrote horoscopes online for years when Astronet first came out, and I was hired by Astronet to host party rooms and
Oh,
talk about
wow.
astrology. And I did it with a friend that worked there, another astrologer from Seattle, Eileen, and we had a ball. And then I had to write columns, so I that really brought me up a level because I had to sit and write about it for other people. But I was only writing a horoscope, career scopes for the month, or your day. So I know all about horoscopes, but they really only just give you a little pinch because your own
Right.
chart is literally a circle. If you picture a wheel in front of you, like a circle on a piece of paper, and then you draw a straight line down the center from top to bottom and a straight line across as if that's a horizon line, you've got the beginnings of a chart. Then you would look over to the left of the horizon sign, and that would be the constellations around the Earth. One of those would be rising at the moment you were born, and that's your rising sign. In my case, it's a fire sign. Um, and then the houses go in order. the little pie-shaped wedges. There's 12 of them around the circle, and that's it. You've got the two lines, and those are the four axes of the chart. AXES, axis. Um, Power is in those 4 points, and so if planets are grouped around those 4 points, it's for sure a big deal in your life. Wherever the planets are, you follow the meaning of what that is and make a story out of it. So you're kind of painting a picture as an astrologer for your client about their life. And it doesn't take long before they're in because
Right.
you're giving them actual information that over the last, I started in 1974, so I don't know how long that is. Can't do that math in my head either. But it works beautifully, and I love it. It can help people. It can make them focus in on their gifts, and it can make them aware of the things they trip over.
Yes.
Because
And
that's how things are in
it's
life.
both. And that's one thing that stuck out to me when we first started working together and you started to mentor me is you said, this is a snapshot of where all the planets were when you were born. This is it. And it's important to look at the fact that there's always going to be challenging aspects and there's going to be great aspects with anything. So I loved that idea of like, this is your snapshot that you can work out of this. This is kind of where your lessons are. It doesn't have to be that, oh, you have this challenge. This is your whole life now. It's something that you can learn and move out of. It's not static, right?
Right,
So
right.
I loved that explanation in the beginning because I feel like that opens up to so much potential and possibility.
And it does. I mean, it charts are intricate beyond belief now. It's
Yes.
beyond belief. But the basics were always there, and I use the basics because that's the most important thing is to start with the 10 planets. What sign are they in? What is your sun sign? What is your moon sign? What is your rising sign? Those are the big three that
Yes.
people need to find out about first because that's the first few steps to understanding it.
I've
And
heard that too, that people call those, I heard somebody say it was like the primal triad. So
yeah,
talking about the sun, the moon, and the rising sign. And that gets into when you talk to people about astrology that haven't gone down the path too far, they'll say things like, well, I'm a Pisces, but I just don't resonate with all of what that says. And you're always like, well, that's because there's so much more. That's just an aspect. And really, even that, until you go into the moon and rising along with the sun, you can't even get like part of a picture, even though
right.
those are like the three big ones. And then we go into all the rest. So, can we touch kind of on those three aspects for somebody that's just
Yes.
starting out? So, what would you say the sun sign describes for a person?
I would say it's your innermost self. It's who you are, where your heart comes from. It's your basic
Basic
inner heart
nature.
self. Yeah,
Yeah.
basic nature. Um, I would say that about the sun sign. Um,
And what about the moon?
the moon is feminine. It is um, emotional. It's our emotional response. It's how we were probably raised by aunts, mothers, neighbors, the women who cared for us and tended to us when we were younger. Um, so it's an emotional thing, and everybody has a moon. And I think Mark Twain said, everybody has a moon and everybody has a dark side that they never show anyone.
Hmm.
And that gives me the chills to say
Gives me
right
the chills
now
too.
because in truth there are difficulties in charts. There are points where you think, why would I have picked this chart? There are points where you
I know
think,
I have.
I don't want to be this person. But it's there and it's real, and if you follow it, it leads you to unveiling yourself to yourself. And that's the
Right.
most important thing to me.
And the moon is kind of that shadow part. I remember it being described as something that people don't see about you right away. It kind of takes a little bit more digging or getting to know you just a little bit more. And then going into the rising sign, which is kind of the immediate influence. Is that how you would describe the rising?
I would. It's like the third in line, and you said it perfectly because you said moon, sun, and so on. There's also Mercury, and here's what I learned
Right.
recently. Um, I just learned this recently, and it's really fascinating to me. Is if you think of a birth, You give birth to a baby. There's this innocent child that's been warm, safe, and fed inside you, floating in warm water. It's all peaceful. And then they're born. Oh my gosh. Bright lights,
Shock.
people, there's chaos maybe in the delivery room. So that goes straight to the infant's moon first. They're like taking in all these feelings and thinking, ugh, what is this? Am I safe? Am I going to be fed? I'm cold. Why is it cold? There's that whole shock of birth, and it's emotional to the infant. Next, has to come in through the door. I think it's the ascendant or the rising sign, they're the same thing, as a doorway into the self. So next, the infant has to throw all this mess to the ascendant sign, and whatever that is. And then they get a little more, and if somebody bundles them in a blanket. Oh, okay, I'm warm now. It goes like that. And then the third place it goes is not to the sun. You don't figure out your sun right away until you've got experience as a child.
Wow.
So that infant has to take that to their Mercury and somehow make reasonable sense out of where they are, if they're going to be, basic safety. Who are these people? Am I comfortable? I'm so unsure.
Wow.
That's what happens with a birth, depending on the chart too. Some births are easier than others. Some are traumatic.
Right.
Some are a breeze, they say.
And I know the way that,
a breeze, but
yeah, how I had both of my children, literally, I mean, it was unbelievable. Like my son, and we've talked about this, it was such a slow labor and delivery, and he had Saturn right on his ascendant, which slows everything kind of down. And then my daughter's was way more intense, and her rising sign is a pretty intense rising sign, and you just can see it right away, that first breath. So that's just a beautiful way to describe that. I've never heard it described that way. I love it.
Well, I really have to give credit to one of my teachers, Martha Lang Westcott, and she said that. She wrote an article, and I was like, prolific people are everywhere writing about astrology. She's one of the best. She's treehousemountain.com. I'll throw that out there for her.
Amazing.
Anybody wants to check her out. Wonderful, amazing genius. We'll get to her some other day in her work.
Yeah, she's advanced.
Very special.
Yes.
So yeah, it goes. The birth moment is an imprint. It's an imprint, and the chart will forever be that chart. But it does have ways of moving forward. And then there are transiting planets still out there that are moving in their cycles. Like I said, some take a long time to go through, some are short. They come together, they do a dance in the sky. It's like they're literally dancing in the sky, moving around. And anytime you print a chart, you can check out what's the progress here from the birth moment. Because I always start with just the birth chart with anyone.
I was just going to ask you that.
Yeah.
Right. So I feel like when I'm looking at a person's birth chart, certain things just jump out at me right away. I don't feel like there's really a rhyme or reason to how I kind of go at it. And I wondered that for you, are there certain elements that you look for right away, or does it tend to be that same kind of way where things just kind of pop out at you?
Things pop out at me.
Yeah.
They do. And you took to this like a duck to water. Dumb old thing that people said all the time when I was a child, but you just knew, you obviously had a connection also, like I had before, because I had that feeling in seeing my chart that day. And it was funny because the fact that it came with the wrong rising sign was a lesson to me.
Right.
Because I kept thinking, that's not me. And then I found out, it's got the wrong. I learned about, there's Eastern Daylight Time, Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
You might be born in Scotland, So
Right.
it changes that. It has to be mathematically correct,
Yes,
which
so
I had
validating.
no sense of whatsoever at the beginning.
Right.
And so then I sent, what I had to do, even before I sent away for the chart, this is just a little side story if we have a minute, was
Absolutely.
I called, because I was born in Kentucky and I was adopted and, there I was with my mountain and my moon. I had to call Kentucky years later as an adult when I had gotten the astrological calendar and thought, this is worth looking for. So I called Kentucky, in Frankfort, Kentucky. I called the records department. And this little old lady, I could tell she was. There wasn't any doubt. She was probably 4'11" and gray-haired. And I explained to her what I was looking for because I knew that they couldn't probably send me my real birth certificate. And I asked for her if I said, "Is there any way you could just tell me what time I was born if that was on there?" She said, "Hold on, honey." And she came back and said 1:35 p.m.
We did
Ah,
the same
yes,
thing for Josh. I love that because I remember
really.
when we had met, we didn't have his birth time either. And you said, try to call the hospital. And it was
Yep.
like the same situation. A very nice woman answered, and it was a long time. You could tell she had to go dig through some things, and she came back and just gave us that time. And it was incredible because we had a wrong time for him too. And I
Yeah.
knew we had both looked at his chart and we were like, this doesn't feel right. And then we got the correct time and there it was. So
Yeah.
that's, I think, really important. Thank you for saying that because there's definitely people out there that are missing those pieces, and to know that they can kind of try to recover it is powerful.
Yes, it's important to get the correct time if you can.
Yeah, agreed.
You can still, I mean, you can still get information if you
Right,
can never ever, if you have no way, if you were born in a desert and no one was there, you're not going to get it.
right.
So you can still look at that day, but you might not have as much information in detail in the context that you could talk to them about if you had an accurate chart. So when I
Absolutely.
found out my rising sign was not a kind of intense water sign, it was instead a kind of a boisterous, running all over the place fire sign of Sagittarius, I thought, okay, that makes more sense. This is me. That's who I am. So it was ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter happened to fall into the house right behind that rising sign, which is the 12th house, the last house. And it told me that I love to sleep. It told me that I had gained wisdom and learning from a past life. And it was just, it changed the chart to match me. So I
Yes.
think all those things happened for that reason, so that I could find out that, yes, you can find a way to find your time in many cases, and it's worth it. So anybody who wants to ever get an astrology reading from anyone should do their best to make sure mom doesn't just say, "Oh, it was
Yeah,
around
don't
8:30."
trust mom.
Don't trust mom. She was
I think
she was out of it.
mom was busy. Mom was recovering from some things. The funniest thing ever, because I'm an astrologer also, I literally was just bent on somebody has to get that time exactly. And I remember Josh saying to me, okay, it's this exact time, like literally when both kids were born. So it was so funny because that was so important to me that I have that. And it's like burned into my mind. But most mothers are not thinking about what
Yeah.
time is it? So
No,
I,
they're
I
not.
can't, yeah, tell you how many times I've asked clients to get their birth time and they say, oh, my mom says it's around 8:30. And I'm like, okay, just try to research a little bit more.
Yeah, and I think you have to remember too, like that kings and queens had a scribe in the room right there with the
Yes,
pen or
ma'am.
whatever they wrote with, piece of charcoal, I don't know. And they marked those things because it was important.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
think about things like that. Thousands of years this has been going on, and it's only getting
Yeah.
better and more intense and
And
better explained.
I think just going back to that the fact that astrology used to be used as an actual science, I read that it was for more than 2,000 years, astrology and astronomy were the same science.
Yes.
And it was, I think, started with the Babylonians, and they used astrology charts to predict seasons and celestial events. And later it went to weather patterns. And then eventually that forecasted natural disasters and wars, and it went back to humanity and our personalities. And because it worked, royalty employed an astrologer in their court as counsel. So it was that big of a thing. Do you
Right.
feel like there's still validity to the fact that it can be used in an almost scientific way to understand the world?
Totally. I totally know that it can. Yes. I know this by experience, and I think it's a really great thing. And I just want to add, and maybe we'll talk about this in a minute anyway, but I just want to add that Aquarius is the sign of astrology considered, and the planet Uranus or Uranus or however you want to call it, everyone calls that one a different
They do.
way. I call it Uranus right now at this point. Um, it rules those things. It has energetic links to details like astrology and planets and how they can have anything to do with our lives, my thought was always, how could it not? How could it
Yes.
not? What is this grand thing, the sky glittering at night?
Yes.
I believed in a lot of that stuff way before I found astrology. I believed in it in my heart. So it was always a quest for me. And I've come pretty far with it in all these years, and I love it. And I feel like it helps people. It really does
Oh,
help
it
people.
does. You make so much sense of the world every time we'll talk and weird things will be happening. I've always told people you just speak in astrology and you just make so much sense of everything that's happening. And I remember, just like, well, this is going on and talking to you. It's because that's because Mercury is doing this. And then it's like oh yeah, and I think we have to remember that we're constantly being influenced by energy and that can feel overwhelming, but it can also be very validating to see why we feel the way we do. We're hit with things constantly, and it doesn't just emanate from within us. It's the world around us and the sky.
You said that perfectly. That's beautiful. That's exactly what I think too. I feel the same way about it. It's a tool that we've been given and
Yeah,
we should use it. And as many people that can
agreed.
become astrologers and take it into their businesses and other fields or help people that govern, lots of ways. I mean, it could be used so beautifully. Um,
Agreed.
yeah.
Agreed. So one more thing that I was thinking about, which I loved when we first met. I remember the second time we met and we were doing a class, you said to me, now I can see your sun sign in you. And I remember what I'd been wearing the first time we met, and you had said, like, that was your rising sign. And I totally, completely reflected my rising sign and even how my hair was and my clothes. And then the second time looked like my sun sign. So it was really interesting because I look at those things all the time and you can truly see how people are influenced by their chart and how they dress, all the choices they make. Do you feel that you can tell certain things about a person's chart just by their looks or just being with them for a short period of time?
Quite often I can. I don't really, I probably don't look for it. I'm
Right.
probably my empath self or in my heart self is taking in their energy. And then when I see their chart, it's more like that. That day with you, the
Right.
second time I saw you, I thought, yep, Cancer Sun.
There it was. I think I had,
Everybody's mommy.
yes, yep. And going into it, like I remember wearing just like a very silvery tank top. And I think I had like moonstone on. It was just so perfect to
It,
all of that
it
lunar
was.
energy and that sensitivity. So I just loved that. And
When
I
it
love,
walks up to me that clearly, I see it. Yes. So the answer is yes, I guess. I do pick it up.
I think you do too. And I think it's so fun. I play the game of guessing celebrities' sun signs all the time. And it's pretty on usually. You can just tell by, how a person looks or how they dress. And there's something there. And even if it's not exact, you can usually find that component in the chart somewhere.
Oh,
It's
yes.
just being exemplified. So that's really fun.
Absolutely true. Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun game to play on the side.
Oh, I love it.
No one knows you're peering at them that way because it's really kind of all out there to be seen.
Yeah.
And if they educate themselves, if you find out things about your chart that resonate with you, it makes you feel better about being in the world, about being
Yes.
yourself,
Being in your skin.
and having some of the experiences you've gone through, whether they be wonderful or traumatic. It's who you are, and it gives you some kind of an explanation, and it makes me feel safer. I'm always
Yeah.
looking for that. I'm always looking for safety, communication, understanding, and this is the best tool I've ever seen.
I love that. Another fun one that I remember is after I had my son, we talked on the phone. I hadn't told you anything about him, and you said, does he have red hair? And I just cracked up because I think it was his Mars. I forget the placement. I think it's by his ascendant, if I remember. But
Uh-huh.
it was like, yeah, totally, he has red hair, and it was right there in his chart, and you knew it
He
right
really does.
away.
He's got beautiful red hair.
He does.
Yeah.
So I closely follow the daily moon signs and phases because I've really seen how much it can flavor the day. And knowing that knowledge really can help you to make good decisions for that day. And in every class that I do, I always talk about the moon first. So we know what energy we're in, but there's all these other planets at play too. So today, I know the moon is waxing, meaning we're moving toward the full moon. So energy's kind of amping up. And I believe, did we start our day in Gemini and move to a Cancer moon today?
It's a for Cancer now.
Okay. And the moon stays about 2.5 days in each sign. So we're going to be in that Cancer energy for the next 2.5 days. So what else do you see that's going on astrologically for today that's of note to you?
Well, I ran the chart for the time we started talking. And so we'll start with the sun is yesterday, actually, sometime between last night and now. The sun entered Aries at 0 degrees. So it's the first day of spring. And Aries and Cancer are 90 degrees apart. So there's a square aspect. It's called a square. The distance between them creates a little friction, and it makes it energetically more, well, it's definitely more exciting, but it can get up over the top, the energy.
I'm just laughing because that is my husband's sun sign and
I
my
know.
sun sign. We have a nice square, so it's
Yeah, nice square.
definitely very exciting.
I know about that too. In my personal life, my husband and I have Mercury square. So whenever
Yes.
an opinion is thrown out there, the other opinion is the opposite opinion or a different opinion is also going to be tossed around between us. And it's
Right.
not that either one of us is right or wrong. It's just that we're coming from the way our brain works with
Exactly.
Mercury.
Yes.
So all those interesting things happen. What's really nice today is I love this. Mars is up in the sky in Gemini at 10 degrees, and Saturn is at 10-degree Aquarius. So that is a trine, a triangle, 120-degree aspect between the two planets. Mars in Gemini and Saturn in Aquarius. So it's easier to do things related to Mars, like starting things, starting new things. Mars in Gemini is very interested in words, and here we are talking away.
Here we are.
It trining Saturn, Saturn is kind of a hard worker. It rules fathers and the expression of the father in your life, as well. It's your own work that you do. What do you have to focus on that is work for you to get there? Now we have this trine in the sky, and we're talking about astrology, which I'm grateful for since I'm the one talking newly, on a podcast with you. It's
Oh, I love
easier.
this.
It
I
makes it
just
easier.
have to interject because it's so funny. So I love the Saturn and Mars trine because today my Saturn energy was to get some things done outside, and I've been burning leaves all day to try to create some ash for some compost. So it's just like the perfect like responsible Saturn, and I'm going to use the
Oh,
Mars energy. Isn't that funny? And that's
that's
how it
really
works.
great.
It just
Safe,
it
safe
applies so
fire
easily.
burning too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And you're always that way. You have a strong Saturn anyway, a strong Capricorn Saturn energy. So when
Yes.
you do something, you do go about it the correct way because you want to be sure that it's done the correct
Well,
way.
thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm
I've
glad
watched
you
it for
appreciate
years.
that.
I do appreciate that. I do. So there's that. So we've had a long-term planets, big heavy outer planets, Saturn, not Neptune, Saturn, Pluto. For a while, the Sun, Venus, and Mercury are all there too, in the sign of Capricorn, which is a very corporate kind of energy. Like I said, the father who um, has sets the boundaries for us when we're young. It's boundaries and work done. And for 4 years now, we've had a lot of division in the country, and the daddies of the country did shock a lot of us on. I don't care what side you're on. There's been a lot of
Right.
difficulty in people's lives. A pandemic. Who thought a pandemic was coming? Astrologers. Um, but it's been a difficult 4 years because of the Capricorn sign being such a hard-working, rules-bound thing. But when all the other planets got together with it morphed, and it became really difficult to handle that much information coming from Capricorn. I think we all got overdone. It's been a difficult 4 years. And now, since that time, all those planets but one has moved into the next sign of Aquarius. That again it's a lighter sign. It rules astrology. It rules knowing things, being creative, being humane to each other. I think that's our
That's
next
big.
big move,
Yes.
is to
Love
bring
that.
everyone back together, because we're all humans on a ball in the sky and we better get along
Yes,
and take
ma'am.
care of the planet. That's my thought.
Yes. Oh,
So
yes.
that all makes it easier to do. There's more wisdom coming out now rather than paternalistic um, advice that really doesn't let people be who they are. So we were kind of in a rut for a while there. Things were running all over the place to me. What were the rules? All of a sudden, things that rule rules weren't ruling rules anymore. It was like, I don't know, we can't swear on these, can we? I won't say that.
Not usually.
Um, I won't say SHIT show. It just got really difficult. It just really
Right.
got difficult to be in the world lately. And now we are receiving some relief because it's all moved, except for Pluto is still there. Pluto is the outermost planet. It's powerful. It has a lot to do with becoming something else. It's almost like a moth turning into a butterfly thing.
Transformation, right?
Transformation. Thank you.
Right.
Yes, that's the word I was looking for. That is still in the end of Capricorn and will be for a while yet. For I don't know if I haven't looked to see when it actually goes out, but I think another year and a half. And then it will join us in Aquarius, and things will get done better. We will start evolving in a more humane way again. And that's what we need, because every single human being on this planet deserves the same love, affection, and understanding as anybody else. And for some
Beautiful.
reason, we've lost that path a little bit. And I think that's why. It kind of harkened back to patriarchy,
Yes.
where, you know, somebody that put on a long black coat and preached in the church could tell us who to be. And not every church is that way. I'm not down on the church. I'm not
No,
talking
not at
about
all.
anyone's personal religion. It's just that there was this I own you kind of feeling in the world. A lot of people have experienced that and haven't been able to pick themselves up in their lives. So I feel like the Aquarius energy it's a lighter energy. It's more creative. It's humanitarian,
Yeah, right.
and so that's what we need. And here it is.
Absolutely.
Saturn and Jupiter are there now in Aquarius, and I'm happy about that
I
for
am
all of us.
too. It
Yeah.
it feels like it's going to be a lot lighter of a time, and I
Hmm.
know Capricorn intimately, and it can definitely be very, very regimented. So
Yeah.
it's great to move into that lightness and that uniqueness, and to really just get a handle on who we are and some beauty in the world again.
Yeah. And the other thing, besides the planets moving from Capricorn to Aquarius, is Neptune. Neptune is sensitivities,
Mhm.
allergies, it's religion and spirituality, it's um, all kinds of things.
Can be addictions
It's
as well,
magic. It can be,
right?
oh, let's not forget addiction. Yeah, it can be addiction. It can be the ocean. It's water.
Yes.
It's the most
Yes.
beautiful mermaids. I always think of mermaids and things like that.
I
That's
do too.
the way my brain works. So we've got Neptune in its own sign of Pisces. So all the Pisces out there that you met that said, "Oh, I'm a Pisces," they're really a
Yes.
Pisces now, because they're getting a double dose of Neptunian energy, which can be imaginary things. It can also be being in touch with God or your next door neighbor. You just kind of like, it's like an opening up to whatever is coming. And so you have to be careful and have good boundaries now.
Right.
If you are a Pisces sun, or you have other planets aspecting that, or wherever it is in your chart, you kind of have to be careful and have boundaries with it, because you can be misled. You
Right.
can mistake or have a misconception about something and believe it. So
Exactly.
we're
So
all kind of
there's
spending
both.
our way. We're doing the
Yes.
breaststroke through Pisces in a big way with Neptune there. And I think it will change a lot of ways that people treat each other. There is such sensitivity there. And it's, we need that.
We do. That's
Yeah.
beautiful. So that's just like a quick, I mean, all of that information is a quick glimpse at a daily, looking at the daily chart. And again, knowing that a lot of those planets are going to be there for a while, but I just think that can give the listeners such an idea of how vast a chart is. And once you go down that road, I mean, you could read about the same chart for years,
Forever.
forever, especially when you
Forever.
get into the transits and what's changing and shifting and asteroids. And we'll definitely have to talk about that in the future because it's
Yeah,
incredible.
in the future we will. I just want to add one. Do we have time to add one more
Please,
planet?
yes, I'd love.
Uranus is up in the sky,
Right.
and I want to let all the Tauruses know out there that I feel for them, because Uranus is in the sign of the Earth sign of Taurus, and Uranus, remember, it rules astrology and opportunities coming, things popping out of Pandora's box.
I always
It's
think of the
it can be
rebellion.
it
Yes.
can be rebellion. There's all kinds of things that come unexpectedly with Uranus.
Right.
Some are great and some are not so great.
Right.
So if you're a Taurus, by nature, you want things to stay settled.
Yes.
Taurians are not open for sudden shocks. And they're getting them because here is this planet moving through their sign, and they've got to take it in. And that alone can explain a lot to somebody everybody has Taurus someplace in the wheel. That's the trick. People don't realize.
Yes.
That's why horoscopes work. There's too much complexity in a human being for just a
Exactly.
sentence or two of the day to mean too much. It means something. It's a place to start. But Uranus and Taurus is shaking up the foundation of what a lot of people think is real in our world, and especially Taurus people. They like to know what they want their chair in the corner to still be there where they left it when they left the house that morning. You
Yes.
move their chair, and they're going to be all over you. Where's my chair? Why is my chair not there? Yeah. So there's a lot of upset going on in the Earth sign people community because of this, because it's shaking things up that are usually put away and the drawer shut and locked. It's
Yes.
not like that right now. There's some very unusual things happening. I would see that as I look at this chart that I'm looking at, which is the chart of the day, which is just like a transit chart. You called it transits, and that means that's what's up in the sky right now. You can apply those transits to your own birth chart, and it is, and you know this, but I'm talking to the listeners.
Absolutely.
It's absolutely going to affect you in some way. And if you understand what each little pie-shaped wedge, they're called houses. They house the planets. If you know where that is in your chart, you would know where to expect something unexpected.
Right.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Oh, this is incredible. Thank you for sharing that about what's going on right now.
you're welcome.
So,
It's
is there anything else you would like to add about astrology or anything before we conclude today?
hmm. I would just urge everyone out there to try to find out more about yourself this way. It's all over YouTube. You
It
can
is.
watch people explaining charts. You can sign up for classes all over the place. It's everywhere. You can get a book. Um, just start learning and find out where your planets are. Um, that's what I would say is
Agreed.
put your toe in the water, and see what you can learn about yourself.
Go
And I
down the
do
rabbit hole.
down the rabbit hole, and it is a rabbit hole,
It
and
is.
I am still learning. There's so much more information we can get from the sky now besides the 10 planets, and that has added. I will never catch up to all of that in my lifetime, and I know that, and that's fine. I'll have another lifetime, and I might even just discover that I'm an astrologer and I don't have to find my birth time. I'll know it. It just was the way that I was led to it. It's just been so ironic because of the importance of that mountain behind myself and that moon. That was some sort of standard flag flowing in the wind for me from the time I was 3. So
Right.
that's what drew me to it, and it's been my it's been in my bag of tricks ever since, and it works. It works when you do the work.
It does.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so, so
you.
much for being on today and for sharing. a sliver of your wisdom. You have more wisdom than so many people, and I'm just honored to have had you. And I can't wait to talk to you again.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
So thank you everyone so much for listening today. Enjoy every moment of learning about your birth chart and all astrology can bring to you. And please hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying the show. And if you're on Apple, please rate and review and drop a comment on an episode you enjoyed. I'd love to hear what you're thinking of the show. I'm now also offering to answer any intuitive questions you may have on upcoming episodes. So if you'd like to receive some intuitive guidance, please email me any questions to healingbyfelicia@gmail.com, and I will get to yours as soon as I can. You can join me again next month as we continue our journey into the beautiful path of shamanic living. And Paula, how can someone get in touch with you for an astrology reading?
Well, as we were talking about things being unexpected, my website is down for renewal. I'm getting new testimonials, new things, but it's papermoonastrology.com and it will be back up in a month.
Yes.
Thank you for asking. It was so
Well, I
fun
know
to
so
talk
many
astrology.
people. Oh, I loved it. And I know so many people will want to reach out to you. I send people Paula's way all the time. So you can also reach me and contact me if you want to get a hold of Paula. I'm here to make that connection. And remember that you can get in touch with me too for an Akashic record reading or shamanic healing at my brand new website, Felicia, Felicia Armstrong.com. You can also keep in touch with me at my Facebook page, Felicia Armstrong Shamanic Healer, and through Instagram through my tag at Felicia.s.Armstrong. May you understand yourself and the world around you more deeply.